Lock us in, load us in, pop in that 8-track, spin the tape. Here we go. Hey now everyone, welcome back to a brand new episode of the Star Wars Time Show. But it's not just a Star Wars Time Show, it's the Resistance recap. That's right, we're two fools. We've been recapping Resistance from the beginning. Maybe, maybe not, but that's the story we're sticking to. So it's Matt, it's Nick, it's Pete. We're here to talk about the latest episode of Star Wars Resistance, which was titled The Disappeared. And if you're keeping score, Nick, I believe it was S1E18. So as we always do with these recaps, we start with breaking down, analyzing, pointing out, whatever you want to call it, the episode's Easter eggs and or Star Wars franchise references. And Nick, as we both found this week, and I did miss one, I'll bring it up. I noticed after I already edited the video, I did miss one, but it wasn't huge. But this episode, The Disappeared, didn't really have much. We only had 3 in total. One was an Easter egg, and then the other 2 were references. So this episode in general, when we go into the recap and review, wasn't very action-packed, didn't really do much. So I wouldn't say it was a great episode overall, but it was definitely revealing, and it moved this show into what we're going to call the climax of this season for sure. So, Nick, let's go ahead and start with our minimal amount of Easter eggs and references.
Yeah, so 3 in total here. And like you said, just not a whole lot was happening. So you didn't have a whole lot of opportunity for Easter eggs to happen here. Last week we had, a good amount. This week, not so many. So number 1, first up, is during the episode, we see a First Order transport arriving at the Colossus station. And if you remember from the very beginning of The Force Awakens, we see a very similar, if not, could be the same First Order transport landing at the village of Lor San Tekka's people. And so that's the reference there. So you get a very similar, if not the same, First Order transport ship arriving on the Colossus station. So pretty cool looking vessel.
Yeah, we actually, I do believe this is the first time they appeared in this series. And really what that implies, Nick, is the First Order is literally moving in. I mean, these are their troop transports. We found out later in the episode they're also using them to get rid of Colossus citizens that talk shit. So there's a good chance that now that we're seeing an uptick of traffic of these transports, that garrison that Pyre was talking about last episode has arrived. And more than likely it has, just based on some of the events here. So moving on to number 2, this was a reference. And, Tam, she's probably the best mechanic on Team Fireball. And there's a brief scene where they're at Yeager's shop. She's cranking on the Fireball, and she's going like, damn, Kaz, what the hell did you do this thing? There's carbon scoring all over it, which, if you remember that term where it was used before, Luke says it to, well, I guess he really says it to C-3PO when he's cleaning R2. He's like, oh, man, you got a lot of carbon scoring. Have you guys seen some action? Basically implying that if there's carbon scoring on a piece of metal, it's been shot at by blasters. Right?
Yeah, and with R2-D2, we know that happened because he was in the back of X-Wings or fighters or anything like this. I mean, he was with Anakin the entire time in episodes 2 and 3 when he's flying with him. And then also we see him with Luke in his X-Wing in the original trilogy. So we know that R2 has definitely seen some action. And we also know in Resistance, the Fireball has from the last episode where they had the brush with the First Order. So...
And it definitely got shot at. I mean, there's no doubt about it.
Keen observation.
Really, this scene, again, we'll get into Tam, because she's becoming more and more of an issue, I believe, for Kaz and Yeager. And really, the guy's trying to do the right thing, even though she thinks she's also doing the right thing. But this is just driving a bigger wedge between her, Tam, and at least with their trust factor. Because he's like, oh, yeah, hey, yeah, Kaz just kind of bumbled his way through it. But it was kind of a nice reference to that term carbon scoring from A New Hope. And then finally, last but not least, it was another reference, and I loved how they tie these two together. So anyways, Aunt Z, who is the bar owner on the Colossus, she's kind of a an intimidating looking figure. I don't think she takes shit from anybody. She definitely doesn't take shit from the First Order, which lands her in some hot water. So anyways, at the end of the episode, as she is freed and she's tasked with taking other Colossus citizens off the station because they're essentially blackmarked by the First Order, they're fucked. She says, "Yeah, we're gonna go to Takodana to meet up with an old friend." And it's like, okay, bar owners in the galaxy, Takodana. She's buddies with Maz Kanata.
Very clearly, yeah. When I heard this, I was like, okay, awesome. We may get, I don't know if we're gonna get Maz in this series. Maz is an animated character, animated CG character in the live action movies. I would be all about seeing Maz come in and then, see how she influences the Resistance. At this point, we already know that she's kind of, she doesn't like to, I guess you would say, play sides, but clearly, Aunt Z has some sort of link to Maz.
Well, I mean, Maz implied enough to Finn. Like, I've seen this shit happen before. It was, the Old Republic, the Empire rise, now the First Order. So she's definitely a good guy, but she lives in that Han Solo zone. The scoundrel type of, she may commission some shady jobs or interact with shady people, but in the end, when it comes down to right and wrong, she's always going to fall on the side of righteousness.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm very interested to see if this does lead to anything with Maz. I mean, we see a couple of characters leave here, but it's not anybody that we would consider mains. So our mains are still on Colossus Station, while Aunt Z and, others leave to go to Takodana. And we'll talk about those others here in our recap and review, which, like you said, Matt, not a lot happened in this episode, but what I would call this episode is a tone setter. So, the last one we had a ton of activities, a lot of things going on, a lot to kind of digest and kind of figure out what the repercussions were going to be. This one, we get into it, and it just basically is setting the tone for what we can expect for the next few episodes at least. So,
well, I mean, this essentially, like I said, I don't know if it was offline or not, but this episode to me, and I believe we were referencing an episode like this last cast, or at least the last two ones. We said we may kind of get a reprieve from all this real spy, action intense, sneaking around type of stuff. And while they were still sneaking here, this, like we said at the onset, it was kind of a light episode in terms of things happening, like the pace. There was really one main subject, and that was the fact that people are disappearing on the Colossus, and these people disappearing are ones that have talked shit about the First Order.
Exactly. So it's basically you're seeing the grip of the First Order around the Colossus tighten a lot, and that kicks off with Pyre essentially telling Captain Doza no more races. So the episode opens up with the Aces going about doing their typical race around the obstacle course to keep the people of the Colossus entertained, to keep the Aces themselves tight and ready for any kind of action they may have. But Pyre says, no more. This isn't happening anymore. Doza tries to push back and says, look, as long as I'm running this station, these races are happening. And it only took Pyre, a little bit of time to come back and say, well, for security reasons, we're saying that this can't happen.
The good old, as with any invading force, it's always, under the guise of security.
Exactly.
Any population that gives up their freedom, it's always under the guise of security, a.k.a. the wall. We need to be secure.
So it definitely, like, this episode definitely did a great job of setting off exactly what the First Order's mission is here. And that continues into Aunt Z's bar, where we see Tora, we see Kaz, Niku. They're all hanging out at the bar, trying to get a drink, have a good time. And there's a very clear First Order presence there, so much so that two troopers walk in and try to throw down a hollow recruiting.
Yeah, I mean, dude, the First Order is openly recruiting now on the Colossus. I mean, like Pyre said last week behind closed doors, or 2 weeks ago, I'm kind of lost in the timeline here. But he said, we're bringing a garrison, and those citizens that roll, we won't fuck them up, but if they're against us, then we're going to take care of it. And that has happened. I mean, this garrison is on the Colossus, and they are ruling it with an iron fist under the guise of security. But it was like they roll in the Aunt Z's. That's her place, and she's a big, imposing woman. And they throw down this hollow ad, and she's like, "Go fuck yourself."
Yeah.
And then you got, how about that little fucking bot? You know, we mentioned him the last time. That has to be 9E, because he's a little tattletale asshole.
Yeah, and he's always like, he's rolling around to people, and he's taking out his little shocker, his little taser thing to like enforce his own level of, you know. Oh
yeah, he's a tough guy. He's Tommy Tough Guy whipping his thing.
So it was. As soon as I saw that too, I was like, man, this has got to be 9E, because it's just like he's
way too much personality for an a First Order droid not to be that little dick.
Yeah, so it's just like this kind of stuff just builds on it. So like they're openly recruiting, and Aunt Z, she says, no, this shit is not happening. Like she takes the thing off and she throws it back at him like, look, you can, you may have a presence here, but you're not going to be recruiting in my bar. This is my establishment. I'm not going to let it happen. And, as a result of that, she is one of the ones who is disappeared, as the title of this episode implies. But another one who is disappeared is Hype. So after it is announced that the races are canceled, not going to happen anymore, Hype kind of is very upset about this. He goes off on like a tantrum, basically, goes to his hangar where his ship is, to either blow off steam. Maybe he was going to go for a fly of his own, and it's already being raided by First Order troopers. So essentially they're locking down his ship. They tell him, you're not allowed to leave. Doesn't matter. I don't care what your clearance is. I don't care that you're an ace. You can't go anywhere. And he takes offense to this, unknowing that the First Order is now starting to get rid of people who take offense to First Order actions.
Well, I mean, they're going full on Nazi Germany at this point.
Yeah,
you talk shit, they're gonna scrub you. I'm surprised they're not just killing people yet, because we did learn that people like Hype, Aunt Z, some other random Colossus citizens, they're getting locked up in crates and essentially sent off platform.
Yeah, sent off world somewhere.
Yeah, probably to go be slaves in their mining operations. Who knows? But they're definitely getting off of the platform.
Yeah, so quickly, Kaz and Tora take notice that, like, hey, Hype's gone. We don't know where he is. Tora is insistent that Hype would never just leave without saying anything. Like, she knew that there was some sort of issue that he had. He was going to go blow off some steam, but he would never just leave the Colossus without telling anybody. And that's the story that the First Order gives them. They actually ask the First Order troopers, like, hey, look, this person is missing. Hype Phazon, where is he? And they tell Tora and Kaz, like, oh, he just went off on a flight. Like, he was cleared to leave at 1 o'clock at 100 hours this day.
Well, yeah, what that does, at least for people that aren't Kaz, because, I mean, Kaz obviously knows the First Order's shady as fuck. That's why he's there. But what it did, at least for Tora, is like, fuck, these guys really are up to no good.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I wouldn't say Tora's like Tam and she loved him, but I think, like her dad, she thought that, okay, they are helping with security, and sometimes you got to sacrifice. But now, and especially after this, they caught him in that lie, she knows that they're definitely up to no good.
Yeah, so knowing that they're up to no good, Kaz and Tora decide to go on a mission to find out what really happened to Hype. And it was, in the process of this mission that they find out not only is Hype missing, they make their way back to Aunt Z's bar, and Aunt Z is now gone. It's now being run by some other proprietor. They walk in.
No, it's her robot, like her bot. I forget his name, but he's trying to like keep up with all the orders, and he's bumbling around. But yeah, she's gone.
Yeah, and the bar is littered with recruiting posters and recruiting hollows for the First Order now. So now they know something is happening here. They're taking people because they witness Aunt Z tell these First Order troopers, you're not doing this in my place, and now she's missing too. So then the real search continues. They find Hype's ship. He's clearly hasn't left. His ship is still here. Aunt Z's missing. Hype's missing. What are we going to do? They go searching all throughout the station, and essentially they find their way into what's essentially like a cargo hold of the Colossus, just a bunch of these crates. And while they're, in this area, they hear people talking. They hear, voices coming from inside of these crates, and they realize that, like, oh shit, this is where they are. And,
this happens. This was finding them in the crate took place after Kaz and Tora stumble upon Doza and Yeager plotting. Like, to me, this was one of the big revelations of this episode. It was a slow episode. It wasn't horrible. It just wasn't that exciting, but it did have two huge revelations, and this is the first one here. We now know that Doza and Yeager are working together, and that Doza knows full well what the fuck's going on. He knows the First Order is here. He knows they've essentially taken over his station, and he's ready to start undermining the operation. And they basically, Tor and Kaz convinced the two adults, like, listen, great, you guys have this plan, but we need to save these people now. And then that's why they go off and find the crates.
Yeah. So, and, for a while now, both of us have been on the train that Yeager is the spy. Like, Yeager's the First Order spy that's on the station that Kaz's supposed to be looking for. Now, with this, I mean, it definitely puts a damper on it.
I was hoping I was going to be like an all-star here, but I don't know. I think I'm going to have to maybe cash this one in. It just, especially with now that we got a clip from the upcoming episode, and it literally continues right where this episode's cliffhanger left off. I don't know. I think it's going to be a hard spin at this point. But hey, I tried.
Yeah. So basically, we now know that Yeager and Doza are working together to try to thwart all of this, or try to at least slow down all of this First Order, stuff that's going on. And then Tora and Kaz decide they need to go and save the people out there who are about to be shipped off somewhere. I mean, nobody knows where these people are going. They've already probably transported others off of the station, and in doing so, they go, they try to save them. They do save them. They're able to successfully knock out, or somehow figure out a way to take out First Order troopers again. Like, it's another one of those situations where, like, Kaz and Tor are definitely in over their head.
Well, everyone jumped in. I mean, I think Aunt Z was beating people up. Hype was fighting a little bit.
Aunt Z just looked like an animal. Like, she, as soon as the door opened for her to be able to, like, get out there and get into some action, like, she jumps on the back of two First Order troopers and just, like, completely crushes them. And then Hype knocks somebody completely off of the station altogether into the ocean.
Oh, yeah.
To save Kaz.
Murder, death, kill. 187.
Yes. So he did not, like, these people, these First Order troopers were definitely, one, not ready for the amount of trouble they're going to be in with Tora, Kaz, Aunt Z, and Hype. And they just thought that they had such a good grip on this station that they were never going to be able to stop them. So luckily for Hype and Aunt Z, and then one other Colossus Station resident, Kaz and Tora succeeded in saving them. And then they know they can't stay. Hype and Aunt Z can't stay. It's already been called in that they've been captured, that they've been disappeared.
Yeah, that's what we were saying. Kind of, I previewed it when we were talking about the Easter eggs. I mean, Z, Hype, whatever. I mean, when they were freed, everyone knew that they could not stay, or they'd always be hiding in the underbelly of the Colossus, which just wouldn't work. So that's when Kaz pretty much says, we got to get you out, but we also have to steal that cargo, or the troop transport, and you guys are going to have to get the hell out of here, because that's the only way we can get you out, and the First Order actually thinks that you did leave as prisoners.
Yeah, so they take not only the troop transport, but they take the troops too. Like, they're, aside from the one that fell off the station, like, the knocked out troops are drug onto the ship and they are transported away. And as as they're taking off, Aunt Z says, "We're going to Takadana. I know somebody over there," like we mentioned in the Easter egg. So they're going to go see Maz Kanata and see what can happen from there. Maybe we get to see her in upcoming episodes of Star Wars Resistance, maybe not, but we know that Aunt Z and Hype are off to safety at the very least. And then after this, Kaz is feeling pretty good. Like, he was able to thwart another First Order plan here. And he walks into the Fireball, the Team Fireball headquarters, essentially. And it's like, hey, you won't guess what I, did. But before he could finish his statement to Yeager, he looks up and the room is littered with First Order officers, Commander Pyre included. And they are essentially holding Team Fireball at gunpoint.
Oh, yeah, they're fucked.
Yeah.
The fix is in, as they say. The clip we got for the next week's episode, which I think is called Descent, kind of gives away what's going to happen with this cliffhanger scene. But when I first saw it, I was like, damn, how'd they catch him? Like, who ratted him out? Did Tam rat him out? But, she was kind of round up, too. And it was revealed in this clip for the episode coming up this Sunday, or which we'll be talking about on next week's Resistance Recap, that they basically tracked down Team Fireball because they spotted the Fireball in their sector.
Yeah. So we know that they get arrested. Like, the clip shows that. So you see, like, you're under arrest. And then the other interesting thing that we got from this pre-episode clip, or this pre-episode reveal, is that we got a still image from this, and it is of Tam and what looks like a relative of hers. It's hard to tell if it's her mother, if it's her sister, but this relative is dressed in full First Order pilot gear, and the still image just shows them looking at each other. So it's not very clear. It's, what is clear is now we can understand maybe why Tam has been so pro First Order recently.
Well, here's my take on what this could be. If that's like her sister or something, I have a feeling that the sister is going to be the one that wakes Tam up.
Yeah.
Like, she's going to say, listen, I had no choice. They came and got us, and we already know Tam's grandfather worked for the Empire, so I mean, they clearly lived in a planet that's in the main system and, was under the Empire's reach, if you will. So there's a good chance if she is related to this person could be the one that's like, listen, these people are bad. I'm fucked. Don't trust them. Believe your friends. Get your head out of your ass.
Yeah. It's definitely a possibility, because even up to this episode, Tam has been very adversarial with Kaz about.
Oh, dude! I mean, we're talking Aunt Z's, where the first time they come in, they're like, "Oh yeah, go to First Order." She's like, "Oh, thanks, guys. You're doing great. You're awesome." Blah 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 blah.
And that's like, Tam is clearly just a very naive kid in this instance. Like, Kaz does have inside information. He's there as a Resistance spy. Yeager has the benefit of seeing what happened with the Empire and the Imperial reign throughout the galaxy for so long, being on the rebellion side. But, Tam just doesn't have the context, doesn't have the ability to separate, true security from occupation. But she has always, ever since the First Order occupation has started here, she's always been very pro First Order. And now she may be getting a taste of, why this isn't such a good thing.
Here's the best part. When we get these clips sent to us from Disney, they kind of do a little summary.
Yep.
It's implying that Tam, even after being arrested, is going to side with the First Order, because she's going to think that if she, doesn't know anything and goes along with them arresting everybody, and maybe even helping them with Kaz and Yeager, that she's going to come out scot-free and be okay.
Yeah, she's, again, like, that is how she is. She is a naive kid. She's very skilled. She's a very skilled mechanic. Obviously has aspirations to be a pilot as well, but she just doesn't understand what's happening in the galaxy right now. She has no experience with it, and all she can wrap her head around is, I mean, she's probably like, nobody can be this bad. Like, nobody, why would they arrest us if there was no issue? Why would they not let me go if I didn't do anything? She doesn't have the ability to decipher, some people, some organizations are just not good inherently. And that's what's happening here with the First Order, is that they don't care if you didn't do anything. All they care about is their own goals, and is having you around going to be a detriment to us
Exactly. I mean, they really don't care about anything outside of their main plan. So if you're not fucking with that plan, then they're probably not going to fuck with you.
Yeah.
But the moment you get in their business, even if you just tell them to go pound off and don't leave your hollow ads in here, you're done.
Even if it's just by association, like obviously Tam is not anti-First Order, but just by her being associated with people like Kaz, Yeager, Tora, Captain Doza, she's done. Like she could be as pro First Order as possible, but as soon as she realizes like, oh, holy shit, like Kaz, we may have had differences of opinions, but like he is gone and the First Order did it, like she cannot be left around to voice that. Like they have to dispatch of her as well. So it doesn't matter if your opinions lie in a different place than the ones that you associate with. You are guilty by association. So this next episode is going to be very interesting. I'm really, really curious to see how it plays out, not only for Tam, but for Team Fireball as a whole.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it looks like they, at least Kaz and Yeager, are going to be able to escape this little holdup that this episode we're talking about now ends on. So, like we said at the beginning of the recap here, I believe this episode is kind of the one that's kicked the season into its climax. So the next 2 episodes are probably going to be pretty intense, probably pretty dark for the good guys. And by the end, I think we're going to be right in line with the events of TFA, if not TLJ, and we should know where the Colossus ends up. Is it going to sink? Is it going to take off? And what's going to happen with our heroes, and how's that going to set them up for season 2? So while it wasn't a very entertaining episode, it had some good information in it. It pulled back a few more layers on the big picture, which I appreciate. But it's definitely, I think this was the tipping point. This is where we're going to get into bang, bang, boom. Oh, shit. We're fucked. The galaxy is fucked. Why didn't anyone stop the First Order?
Yeah. Obviously, we know the big speech by Hux is coming sometime soon in this season. So we can now see that we're well on the road to getting to that point.
Yeah, totally. So, we'll be doing this again for The Descent, which is going to air this Sunday on Disney Channel, I believe. Mine was all fucked up last week. I had to watch Monday morning, but I still got everything out on time and done because I do not miss an episode of Resistance. Love the show, people. We've been talking about it now forever. We do every Monday. We have our videos breaking down Easter eggs, Star Wars references, a video to recap and review, and then we usually do a special podcast episode on the Star Wars Time Show just to make sure we have our Resistance bases covered. All right, my friends, until next time, may that force be with you always.